Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial. This segment's being brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals publish to educate their consumers, to build their practices, and to leave a legacy. We're doing a series of spotlights on remarkable experts across the country who are doing great things for their clients. And joining me from Columbus, Ohio on this segment is Oliver Chapman. Oliver, welcome to the program.
Hey, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Oliver, tell us a little bit about your work and who are the types of folks that you specialize in helping?
Absolutely. I'm a realtor with Keller Williams here in Columbus, Ohio market. I've been doing this for 8 years now, and we help, all types of consumers. We help buyers and sellers. We help investors. And Columbus has grown in popularity. So we're seeing a lot of international clients come in, people from the West Coast. So we're helping a lot of people actually relocate to the area.
Would love to hear a little bit more about that, especially, the country's opening back up, the world's opening back up now. Tell us a little bit about how this recent pandemic has affected your market and grown its popularity.
Sure. So earlier on in the pandemic, we didn't know what we were going to see in the market. I would say for a solid 2 to 3 weeks, like anybody else, when shelter in place came into effect, we saw the real estate market hit the brakes. But interestingly enough, after about 3 weeks, our phones started ringing off the hooks with our clients wanting to re-engage back in the real estate market because at the time, the interest rates were at record lows, and that wasn't going to stop people from getting their dream home. And our market has been a seller's market probably for the past 5 years now. And every year it gets tighter and tighter with lower and lower inventory. But with those special interest rates, people were very excited they didn't want to put off their plans because of COVID. They wanted to get engaged in the real estate market. So we didn't really see any slowdown.
That's fascinating. So now, with the market being so competitive, if you were, say, a first-time home buyer in the area, what should they do differently now to be as prepared as possible to be successful with their offers?
Well, what they'd be best served doing is make sure that your financing is razor tight. Get very early on in the process. People just want to. They're in an information gathering stage, so they just want to kind of view homes and get excited. But we find that sometimes they're a little unprepared going into the real estate market because you got to get very creative with your financing to be able to compete when you have multiple offers. And the other thing I would tell them is, consult early on with a real estate professional such as myself, because we're in the trenches every day helping people navigate this very competitive market. And if they're not prepared, knowing how the contracts work and the special contingencies and how the intricacies of how those are going to either help them or hurt them, depending on their individual unique case, they're not setting themselves up for success. So very early on, get very educated with both a real estate professional and a local lender.
Now, related to those things that you mentioned, what are some of the big common mistakes that you see these buyers making when they come into the market? What mistakes do you see?
Sure. I think sometimes they're a little bit unrealistic. I think a lot of people, we break things down into needs and wants. Everybody always say they always have expensive taste, but people are kind of unrealistic about what their budget's realistically going to get them. And I think that they have to make a list of what they actually need and just things that they want. Wants are bonuses, things that they need. They're probably not going to get everything that they actually need. So you have to prioritize and maybe, be able to settle for like 75% of what they actually need.
Now, today in real estate, there's so much information out there. I bet you a lot of people think that they can probably self-serve the information, do a lot of research online. What are some of the myths or misconceptions that you find people hold that may be preventing them from being successful?
Well, I would say, especially with sellers, right? I think a lot of sellers, people think that, they could sell their house on their own, and they're 100% right. I always tell a seller, anybody could sell their house on their own. But what you're missing out on is the full exposure to an MLS market. When you go for sale by owner, you really only have about 20% exposure to what we would call the active buyers pool. But if you get 100% exposure to the 100% of the buyer pool, that's going to drive the demand. And so we would more than absorb our fees by listing with a realtor than going off our for sale by owner. And national statistics show that you're on average going to sell for about 12% less on your own versus listing with a realtor.
Wow, that's a great insight. I don't think people really knew those numbers. Oliver, you've been doing this for 8 years now. What inspired you to get into real estate? How'd you get started?
That's funny. So actually, my own family, it's been a family business. Not that I actually work for my family. I was born and raised in Virginia, but um, after 4 years of door-to-door sales, I wanted to use those skills in a different industry. And having that background with my family, real estate was just a natural fit for me. So when I got started, I just really hit the ground running. Didn't really know what I was doing, but pure adrenaline. Quickly learned how to serve people, and I think that's what I do best. And people, they don't use you because you're the best salesperson, you're the best realtor. They use you because they like you and they trust you. And every day I work on gaining that trust from the people that I work with.
Before I ask you my last question, for folks listening now who want to work with a realtor, but they're not quite sure, where to start or what to look for, what would you recommend people look for when interviewing to work with a realtor?
Well, I love it. You said interviewing. If you like statistics, 84% of people use the first realtor that they talk to. Realtors, we're all sole proprietors at the end of the day. We're not W-2 employees of each individual brokers. So everybody is a little bit different in terms of their level and service and what they offer. So I would highly recommend, it's a personality fit too. You have to be able to have effective communication with the person that you're going to choose to work with. So I would highly recommend actually interviewing at least 3 agents so you can get a variety and a feel of who's going to work best with you, so you can have that trust. Because at the end of the day, you want to have that trust with your agent, because it's going to be an emotional process for you. And if you don't have that trust, it's just going to bring more turmoil than it's worth for you. So I just highly recommend going out and at least interviewing 3 different agents.
Yeah, great advice, sage advice. Oliver, so for folks that are in your area in Columbus, Ohio, or in areas that you can serve, how can they find you, connect with you, and learn more?
Absolutely. So anybody can find me. If they would like to, they can reach me on Instagram, oliver.chapmangroup, or they can just email me, oliverchapman@kw.com.
This has been terrific. Oliver, I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing with my audience today, and I wish you continued success for you and for all of your clients.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Mark, for having me.
That was Oliver Chapman out of Columbus, Ohio. And this segment's been brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done and published so they could educate their consumers, build their businesses, and leave a legacy. That's all for now. I'm Mark Imperial, and thanks for tuning in.